I'm Vinnie Politan. The subject of my investigation, the woman I used to call the Doomsday Cult Mom until she was convicted of killing 2 of her children. Now she's just the Doomsday Cult Killer. I'm, of course, talking about Lori Daybell. Here's the story. In the sweltering heat of July 11th, 2019, in Chandler, Arizona, a domestic dispute escalated into a fatal confrontation. Charles Vallow arrived at the home where his estranged wife, Lori Vallow Daybell, was residing to pick up their adopted son, JJ. What exactly happened that day is in dispute, but according to Alex Cox, Charles struck him with a baseball bat, prompting Cox to retrieve his firearm and shoot Charles twice in the chest, killing him. Cox claimed self-defense, stating he feared for his life. However, the circumstances surrounding the shooting raised some suspicions. Notably, Alex Cox waited 43 minutes before contacting 911 and did not perform CPR on Charles. Additionally, Charles had previously expressed concerns about Lori's increasingly extreme religious beliefs and alleged threats against him. Alex Cox died on the toilet, and Lori was subsequently convicted in the murders of her children. And now, Lori Daybell stands accused of conspiring to kill Charles. She's on trial for murder again. This time it's her 4th husband, Charles Vallow, and his murder, or his death, his killing, preceded the killing of her children. What's different about this case, number one, you're in Arizona, you're no longer in Idaho, and number 2, she's representing herself. So I want to play some of the moments so you get a feel for how she's doing inside the courtroom, representing herself, with the sole experience being a criminal defendant in another murder trial. Let's take a look.
I feel like the state is trying to say, okay, if you want your speedy trial, guess what? We're not going to let you defend yourself. Guess what? You can't have any experts. And guess what else? You can't have any witnesses. You can't have anybody speak in your behalf. So good luck. Have a nice day.
Your prior attorneys and your current attorneys were asking for more time to prepare the case. So you can't really have it both ways, that you want your speedy trial rights, but you don't want to give notice to the other side of what your evidence is.
I don't not want to give notice to the other side, with the limitations at the incarcerated state where I am, and the limitations with OPDS of getting Lonnie Dworkin late in the game that they did. I've done everything in my power as a defendant to prepare the state, and to give over everything that I could do within my power, with the limitations that I am an incarcerated person at this maximum security prison jail. We were precluded from doing all those things by the state. They should not be interfering with that. That's one of the reasons why everything has taken so long. We haven't been given things we've asked the state for. We haven't been given them. We tried to get them from Chandler and Gilbert. We can't get them from them. She's stopping us from getting from them. How are you supposed to put together a defense?
Why are we waiting until March to address this if you had an issue with that?
I did. These are in my motions to you for specific discovery. I discussed this exact problem.
I ordered the removal of the leg restraint. You will, though, wear the rack belt. And then I said it's up to the sheriff's office if they want to. They can position a couple deputies in the back if they want, additional deputies.
Well, their recommendation was that you wouldn't have to use the belt at all if they had the armed guard.
I read their response and their recommendation, and that's my order.
So what is it exactly?
That you have to wear the rack belt, but not the leg restraint.
And that they will or will not have armed guards?
It's up to them.
Okay.
So there's a pretty good sample, and this was in a back and forth. So you got some of the passion, but I don't know Lori Daybell. Like, I didn't know her before this case. I only know what I've seen in court and what I've seen in some of the other evidence and recordings and videos. But here's the question, and we've got our first question in our investigation, because all of this is making me wonder, does Lori sound like she knows what she's doing here? Like, is this Lori, does she sound like she sounded before all this happened? Like she's of sound mind like she understands what she's doing? Does she sound emotionally like she has during the rest of her life before all of this happened? We've got to get an answer to that, and there's only one place to go. That's to her family. Joining us, Lori Vallow, Daybell's uncle and co-host of the podcast, Tylee and JJ's Silver Linings. Rex Connor is here, and Lori Daybell's cousin and author of I Walked Through Fire to Get Here, Megan Connor, is also with us. Great to have you both here. It's much appreciated. Okay, so I never interacted with her when things were much more normal, I guess, or as normal as they've been in her life, right? Whether it was growing up or during marriage 1, 2, 3, or early on in marriage 4. From your perspective, and I'll start with you, Rex, does Lori sound like she knows what she's doing? Is that the Lori that you know?
Good question, Zara. If you say, does she know what she's doing as a lawyer? Obviously not. She doesn't have that training and that capacity to do it on short notice. Now, as far as being defensive, first of all, I have to say, I know people don't want to hear this, but I've known Lori and loved Lori since the day she was born. It doesn't excuse the horrible, horrible things she has done. But in that time, there have been a lot of wonderful times, and she showed wonderful traits. Now, I know people don't like to hear that because she is an evil murderer, and you don't like to hear nice things about that. But so I've heard her, in much better times. But as far as when she's been cornered, when she's trying to get what she wants, when she's been denied what she wants, as she has been like any human during her life, this sounds like her. It sounds like she's in the courtroom from what I've heard on the tapes so far. She's, trying to manipulate, trying to play why me, be defensive and manipulative. So yeah, no surprise. It sounds pretty much like her to me.
And what you say is fair, Rex. And I mean, even like Charles Vallow loved her, and he knew there was a moment where something changed along the line. Kay talks about how they trusted her, and she was such a good mother to JJ, and then something happened. Right. So I think we all understand that and appreciate that. So Megan, from your perspective, as we listen to her now representing herself in a murder trial, and we hear the way she's arguing, the way she's reacting, the way she's comporting herself, does that sound and look familiar to you?
I completely agree with Rex 100%. I have some good memories with Lori, and I do have some, fond memories of times that we spent together. However, there were times when she wasn't getting her way, when she would be manipulative, when she would be controlling. And I think what we're hearing in the courtroom is her lashing out at the fact that she's not getting her way. Some of the tactics that have worked for her in the past with family members, with romantic partners, are not working for her in the courtroom, and I think she's very frustrated by that.
Why do you think, Rex, that she chose to represent herself?
I'm not in her heart and mind, so I'm just going to speculate along with you and Megan and everyone else. But to my perspective is it's theater. This is Lori theater. No other reason. There's not a, she wants to make a case for herself, see what'll happen. But I don't think there's a deeper motive than that.
Megan, I've covered murder trials for so many years, and sometimes it's testimony, sometimes, representing yourself, but it's this moment of the trial where all the attention is there. And I always think, for these defendants, because most of them on court TV and most of them in courtrooms across the country end up getting convicted. Some don't, but most of them do. And I look at them and I wonder, are they looking at this as their last hurrah, right? Because they will no longer be in a public place. Like if even if she's not convicted here, she's never going to be in a public place again to be heard by people outside of the four walls of whatever prison she is in. What are your thoughts about her, the way she is comporting herself, and what's going on with her as she goes through this trial representing herself? Like, do you think she's enjoying the moment?
I do think she's enjoying it. I do think that she is using this as an opportunity to, to be in the spotlight for the last time. She's got one more trial after this one, but I think she does know that her time in the spotlight is limited, and I think she does know that after this, that she's going back to prison in Idaho, and that she's going to fade from view, and I think that probably bothers her. I think she does enjoy the attention. I think that's part of the reason she decided to represent herself. I think the other part is that she was dissatisfied with what her attorneys did in her last case, and she has enough hubris to think, okay, I've watched my attorneys do this in the last case, and I can represent myself just fine. I think what she's finding out now is that she's not really able to make the connections between the legal arguments that she wants to make. And under pressure in the courtroom, she's not, from what I've observed, not very good at thinking on her feet. And when difficulties arise and she gets a little bit flustered, there was a moment in her questioning of the jury when I saw the mask slip just a little bit, and I saw her experience some, she was a little bit flustered. She was a little bit frustrated, and she had a hard time putting sentences together. So I think we're going to continue to see that as the pressure builds in this trial.
Yeah, I can't imagine. I remember my first trial. I mean, I went to law school, and it wasn't a murder trial. Certainly, they would never give that to a first-time prosecutor. And I was horrific. I was lost. I had no idea what I was doing. But I didn't have the advantage that she did of sitting in a courtroom for a murder trial for several months and observing that. But I did go to law school, right? And and for her, Rex, I mean, this is serious. I mean, this is extremely serious, obviously, and pressure. I think Megan hit the nail on the head. I mean, there's pressure in the moment, like all the attention's you have to say something or do something in a moment, and that's not going to be easy.
The pressure, definitely, but is it really serious for her? I mean, she knows her fate, as we said, and she's not going to lose her freedom. What is she going to lose? I don't know how serious she takes it. Of course, not being in a warped, evil mind, or at least not that version of one. I'm not so sure she's. I think it's more theater than fear for her. But definitely the pressure, because even with that motive, then there's still the pressure. So definitely that.
All right, our guests are staying with us throughout the hour. Coming up next, does Lori think she can charm the male jury?
I am the only person on this earth who knows how much Tylee suffered in her life.
Lori Daybell.
Already convicted for the murders of her children.
Doomsday Cult mom is now lawyer Lori.
She's representing herself.
On charges of conspiring to murder her fourth husband.
She said, I can murder you now.
She really thinks she's equipped to try this case.
She appears very sure of herself.
I have real trial experience.
It's going to be a strange trial. We'll see how it plays out.
The Cult Mom Conspiracy Trial. Live coverage begins Monday morning, only on Court TV.
I am the only person on this earth who knows how much Tylee suffered in her life. She had pain every single day. She never felt good. Her body did not work right, and I don't know if that was from complications from me dying while she was being born or something else, but she had a very difficult life.
That was Lori Daybell during her first trial where she was convicted and she had attorneys. Now she's representing herself, and she sounds, to me, different than she did there. I mean, not so much emotional, but kind of like in the battle, in the fight, inside the courtroom. And by the way, after 2 days of jury selection, they landed 16 jurors. Let's take a look at the makeup of this jury. Juror 1, male. Juror 2, male. Juror 3, female. Juror 4, male. Juror 5, male. Juror 6, male. Juror 7, male. Juror 8, female. Juror 9, male. Juror 10, male. Juror 11, female. Juror 12, male. Juror 13, male. Juror 14, male. Juror 15, male. Juror 16, male. You add it all up, it's 13 men, just 3 women, 17 total, or 17? Okay. So, 16. 4 will be alternates. All these men ended up on this jury. Lori Daybell is, part of the jury selection or elimination process. Brings me to my next question. She's representing herself. Does Lori think she can charm the male jury? Is this just a coincidence, an accident, or is there something going on here? Joining us to talk about all of this, psychotherapist, author of Till Death Do Us Part, Love, Marriage, and the Mind of the Killer Spouse, and host of the Talking Live and Bite-Sized podcast, Dr. Robbie Ludwig, and Lori Vallow Daybell's cousin, Megan Connor. Megan, I'll start with you. From what you've seen in the courtroom, do you think that she's comfortable, happy with male jurors, and thinks that, maybe she can bat an eyelash or two?
I think she is probably happy that she has a majority of male jurors. But I will say that she tends to use the tactics that have worked for her in the past. We've talked about this before. I don't think those tactics are working right now. I did watch and listen to the jurors pretty intently. I listened to the answers to the questions that they gave. And it seems to be a jury full of very serious people who want to serve on a jury. There was one young man who actually thanked the court for the opportunity to be here and said that it was an honor to serve. So I think they're very serious about justice. And when I think about listening to the jurors, I was totally focused on their stories and wanting to hear the things that they said and justice for Charles. And it was like Lori was a sideshow at that moment. So I think the jurors are going to be capable of serving justice here.
Dr. Robbie Ludwig, what do you think about Lori here? Do you think she thinks that maybe she has a little inside track? She's got a history. She had, I think it was 5 husbands. So a little bit of history of being able to convince men that, she's a great person, that she is someone that you could love, someone you could trust, someone you obviously like. Do you think there's any of that going on here?
Absolutely. I mean, Lori's identity is around her looks and around being special. And she also has a delusional disorder. So her being in touch with reality is not so great as it is. So I'm sure she imagines that as she is working on behalf of herself, that the jurors, especially the male jurors, maybe they're falling in love with her, maybe they're being seduced by her, that maybe she has a special connection with them in some celestial way that is helping her to plead her case. But yes, I think Lori is somebody who's used to getting male attention, and she feels that she can seduce successfully and that her looks has helped her to get as far as she has. So that's a definite yes.
What's interesting, Dr. Robbie, is through the years of Court TV, there's one instance that comes to mind when it comes to that concept of, leaving someone on the jury because you think, oh, they may like the defendant. Now, it was a case where the defendant wasn't representing himself, but his name was Scott Peterson, and he was this handsome young man, and there was this young juror with this long flowing red hair who said some things which you would probably want to bounce her off the jury, but the defense sort of fought to keep her on. And I believe what they believed is that a young woman would like him, and it just doesn't work that way inside of a courtroom. The dynamics, like Megan said, jurors come in there, they want to get to the truth. They're not going to get charmed or fall, goo-goo eyes over a defendant. It just doesn't happen that way.
I agree. And the jury system works. I do believe when people are part of a jury, they look at the facts. They are instructed by the judge and they take their jobs very seriously. And they are taking time out of their work life to serve. So I do believe in the jury system and that will happen. But also Lori doesn't look as great as she used to. So the image she has in her mind is already quite, is that not nice to say? I didn't mean it in a mean way.
She's not the one who was on the, was it Ms. Texas or Mrs. Texas competition earlier in this the century, but like, I get it.
It's hard to look your most beautiful when you're in prison. Let's put it that way.
Exactly.
The stress, it's not exactly a beautifying look. It's not like walking out of a plastic surgeon's office. But I think what we see here is that, part of the problem is that Lori is not in touch with reality. And she looks healthier than she is. If you just take the outside, you can imagine that maybe she's well. But she's not a well woman at all, and she probably throughout her life looked a lot better than she was functioning on the inside.
Dr. Robbie Ludwig, great to have you on the program tonight. Thank you so much. Megan is going to stay with us.
Here.
Up next, why would Lori have Charles killed? I'm Vinnie Politan. We continue our investigation of the doomsday cult killer, Lori Daybell. Someone whose life is too bizarre, too dramatic, and too full of dead bodies for anyone to think it's true. But it is. Here's the story. Lori Vallow Daybell, born Lori Noreen Cox on June 26, 1973, in Loma Linda, California, led a life marked by multiple marriages and motherhood. She had 2 children, Tylee Ryan from her 3rd marriage to Joseph Ryan, and Joshua J.J. Vallow, who she adopted with her 4th husband, Charles Vallow. In 2018, Lori met Chad Daybell, a doomsday author, and became immersed in his beliefs. This association coincided with a drastic change in her behavior and strained her marriage with Charles. Charles expressed concerns about Lori's mental state and alleged threats against him. Then, on July 11, 2019, Charles Vallow was shot and killed by Lori's brother, Alex Cox, in Chandler, Arizona. Cox claimed self-defense, stating Charles attacked him with a baseball bat. However, authorities later alleged that Lori conspired with Alex to murder Charles, aiming to access life insurance and Social Security benefits. In 2021, an Arizona grand jury indicted Lori on charges of conspiracy to commit first-degree murder. It's a complicated life. Very complicated. She has one surviving child, Colby, who has spoken out about all this and spoken to his mother since all this has happened as well. But 2 children dead who she's been convicted of murdering. Now, Charles Vallow is the victim in this latest murder trial of hers in Arizona. Charles Vallow was with her for quite some time, and he noticed a change, and he knew things were off, things were bad, and things were getting dangerous with Lori. I want you to take a look at this body camera video where he's talking about some threats that he was receiving from Lori.
So what makes her a danger to herself and to others?
She threatened me, murder me, kill me.
She threatened to murder you?
Yes. And she said,
how did she do that?
My bishop right there is in the car. He was on the phone with me today when she said, I will have you destroyed, is what she said there.
Okay, that's not a threat to kill you.
Yesterday was a threat to kill me.
Okay. What did she say yesterday?
She said, you're not Charles. I don't know who you are, what you did with Charles, but I can murder you now with my powers.
He knew something was wrong. He absolutely knew something was wrong. And what he was trying to do was to get help for Lori. But it didn't happen. It didn't work out that way. And you see the pushback he's getting there from the officer who was interviewing him. Things got so bad that he did actually file for divorce. Charles did. He was getting ready to split. This is the petition for a divorce that Charles filed on February 8th of 2019. So he did file for divorce. Now, he had it dismissed shortly thereafter. I think about a month later, it was dismissed. But divorce was on the table here. They were having problems. Charles knew things were not right. He knew something was going on with Lori. He had lots of suspicions about things going on, and he filed for divorce. So that was one option to end this relationship of Lori and Charles Vallow, which brings me to the next question in my investigation. And it's really motive related, right? Why would Lori have Charles killed? If he was looking to divorce her, if divorce was an option, Charles Vallow did very well for himself, worked hard, earned a lot of money. You get divorced, you get alimony, you get money, you get, if you have the children, you'll get child support. I mean, so why? Why would Lori have Charles killed? Joining us, Lori Daybell's uncle, co-host of the podcast Tylee and JJ's Silver Linings, Rex Connor is with us, and retired police commander, religious cult expert, how appropriate is that here, and host of Profiling Evil, the podcast, and author of the book Deceived, Mike King is with us as well. Let's see, I want to play this first, because I want everyone to hear from Lori. Now, this is after Charles is dead. She moves out to Idaho. JJ is missing. Police come to do a wellness check. But why I want you to listen to this is listen to what Lori is talking about and what's on her mind as her child is missing and her husband is dead, shot by her brother.
My husband, when we were married for 15 years and had raised all these 5 kids together, switched his life insurance policy to her, right? To his sister.
But you have legal custody.
He's my son. I adopted him when he was 2 years. We had him from the time he was 8 months old till 2 years old. So she does nothing else to cause me trouble. So I don't tell people the truth about where we are and what we're doing because of those reasons. So I look like a suspect, but I am a good person.
Sounds pretty obsessed, Rex, with the life insurance that she did not receive after Charles was shot by Alex.
Obsessed about that. And of course, the prosecution in her Idaho trial laid it out very well, saying it's all about sex, power, and money. And this speaks to the money part of it. Not only is there life insurance, as you pointed out in your lead up to this segment, Social Security is involved. You know, $4,000 a month for being JJ's guardian. And since he has special needs, it may even go beyond the 18 years that you usually have for Social Security. So that part was all about money.
Mike King, as you look at this, and you know, it's something that we unfortunately talk about a lot here on Court TV because we cover a lot of spousal murder cases, and you always, you know, look back and say, why not just get divorced? Why not just get divorced? But it looks like she was looking potentially, if she, you know, if she's convicted here, she was looking for a much larger pot of gold.
You know, Vinny, I keep thinking about this. This would have been divorce number 4. I wondered often if that had something to do with it. If he were to die, then she's a victim. She's not divorcing a guy and heading off one more time. I've wondered about that as a strategy. But when you look at this thing in totality, a couple of really interesting things are happening. And Rex really went right to that with the idea there's a life insurance policy that is huge, that she could live really nicely on for a short time, I think, the way she spent money. The second thing was JJ's Social Security, and especially a death benefit Social Security, would have gone on, and given his mental capacity, it probably would have gone beyond 18. So not only 11 years right away of a monthly payment coming in, but probably beyond that. And if she were and if it was all designed from the beginning, were to get rid of JJ, then there's no overhead. It's just straight money coming in as long as she can keep that thing quiet. But then all of a sudden, Charles throws a big old wrench in the works because he finds out, decides that Tammy should be contacted about what he believes is an affair between Chad and Lori. And he reaches out. And now all of a sudden, everything is thrown hilter-kilter, and they've got to move rather quickly because now Tammy may know if Chad intercepted that, then they stopped it for a moment, but that doesn't mean they're going to stop it the next time or the time after that. So I think we're seeing a culmination of all these things coming together. And frankly, he was just bad business for the fantasies that those two had about moving on. I don't even give any credence to the idea of whether they truly believe they were zombies or not. This, as Rex said, was about sex, power, and greed.
Yeah, she had also, used the zombie, that his body had been taken over and Charles wasn't really alive, and she was saying it to Charles. I want to take a listen to Kay Woodcock, who testified, talking about this life insurance.
Are you aware that on or around the 16th of April of 2019, Charles changed his beneficiary back to Lori Vallow?
I knew that, yes. I mean, no, I didn't know at the time, but I've learned later.
So you know now. I don't need to show you the documents. You're aware that on the 16th of April, Charles Vallow placed back Lori Vallow as the beneficiary of his life insurance, correct?
Yes.
Okay. All right.
Well, I know he had changed it, and
Right.
I assume it was to her.
And then would you tell me when he changed it back to you, to your knowledge?
I don't know. There was issue with the insurance company regarding that, and that's all I know.
So issue was the insurance company. But in essence, one way or the other, you were able to receive a beneficiary check as a result of Charles being murdered by Lori and Alex, right?
Now, I don't know if they were the only two involved in this murder, but yes.
Mike, and here we see Lori being served poolside down in Hawaii with Chad. It's interesting, right? He files for divorce, and then Charles is going back and forth with who the beneficiary is. That looms large. It's not lost. Like, Lori knew about this, and it seems like perhaps was attempting to get back in good graces with Charles just so she knew that she could potentially get the money if and when he died.
Yeah, Vinny, and Charles was a cockeyed optimist. I mean, he loved JJ. I think he loved Ty Lee, and he loved Lori Daybell, or Lori Vallow at the time. And so we see this timing happening. February, he files for divorce. By April, they've had this occurring cycle happening, and they're back together, and they're going to make it work. And he thinks, I better put her back on. And then Ned Snyder pops up, and he's got to get him off. And thank goodness he did. And I'll tell you, wouldn't you have loved to have been a fly on the wall when she discovered that her name wasn't on the policy?
Big moment. Mike King, thank you so much. Great to see you. Rex is going to stick around. Still to come. Will Lori blame Alex?
Then my brother heard all the commotion because he was in there, and so he came out.
Confessing to a murder on camera.
We're here to try and understand the mindsets behind your actions in this case. It sounds like you lost control of yourself.
Not at all. No, not at all. I'm done with this interview.
That's so conniving. Do you understand that?
I'm your worst nightmare, David.
Interview with a Killer, a special 2-hour season premiere, Sunday, April 13th, only on Court TV.
Then my brother heard all the commotion because he was in there, and so he came out into the main room, and I guess whatever. What's your brother's name? Alex. He's hitting him with the bat, and they're on the ground, like grappling around or whatever. And then, that was all.
And he
quickly.
And he hit your brother with the bat while they were grappling and stuff.
Yeah, yes, he was hitting him with the bat, like swinging the bat, back and forth, and they were kind of like on the ground, and I was like freaking out trying to go around.
And that's Lori Daybell describing from her perspective what happened when her husband, Charles Vallow, was shot by her brother, that Charles came at him with a baseball bat. And that was the initial investigation in all this, and no one was arrested initially. Alex Cox was never arrested for this because he died beforehand, but Lori did not die. Lori, as a matter of fact, of everyone that was there that day, it was Lori, her brother Alex, he's dead, her husband Charles, he's dead, her daughter Tylee, she's dead, and her son JJ, and he's dead. So she's 5 people there, only one still alive, and it's Lori, and she's on trial for this murder. Now, in that, she's describing that her brother Alex is the victim in all of this, and he was defending himself. The relationship between Lori and her brother Alex is one that we've spoken a lot about here through the years at Court TV. It's kind of a different kind of brother-sister relationship. And let me do this. Let me play Alex's ex-wife describe a moment that she witnessed as she describes this brother-sister relationship.
There was a lot of inappropriate sexual touching and things going on in the family, particularly between him and his sister.
So between Alex and Lori?
And Lori.
Okay, you kind of got me at a loss on this one. What do you consider inappropriate sexual touching?
Like they were simulating sex acts, and which is not normal to me for a brother and a sister. For example, he would pick her up and she'd wrap her legs around his waist, and he would kind of bounce her up and down on himself.
Okay.
In front of me, and they would moan and simulate sex acts. And I have brothers, and I would never act like that with one of my brothers.
Okay.
And his mom and dad talked about their sex life in front of us constantly, and it just kind of seemed to be a game for them.
Oh, the mom and dad didn't really object to it then, huh?
No, not at all. All of this was going on in the family, in front of everybody. They had no shame.
And the nature of the relationship, I mean, when Lori moved to Idaho, Alex moved to Idaho. So there was, some sense of closeness, I guess, that they had. So now she's on trial for murder. Alex is dead. So I'm wondering, at this trial, and it brings me to my next question, I'm wondering, will Lori blame Alex? Or will she blame Charles and say this was all self-defense that happened here? Or will she say, well, Alex was a little bit of a loose cannon, and he did it. I had nothing to do with it. Still with us, Lori Daybell's uncle, Rex Connor, also joining us. Lori Daybell's cousin and author of I Walked Through the Fire to Get Here. Megan Connor also with us. All right, Megan, I'll begin with you. How do you expect her to explain or defend this? Is it going to be like, this is all Charles' fault, he's evil, Alex was just defending himself, or Alex is, you can't control him, he's out of control, and he did it, I had nothing to do with it. I wasn't even in there when he shot him.
Well, there are a couple of things that we know from the court documents. We know that she's going to claim self-defense on some level because the prosecution has mentioned that in some of their motions. And we also know that she's had a phone call with her living son, Colby, where she blamed everything on Tylee. So we know that she has possibly two different narratives, two different roads that she could go down. I think it's most likely that she's going to reference, and the evidence will bear out that Alex was the one that pulled the trigger that day. However, you know, I think she's going to try to deflect attention from her communications prior to the death and after the death. And I think that she's going to try to, you know, point to the fact that Alex felt protective of her. I don't know, as far as the legality of it, whether or not Alex's prior conviction for assault on her third husband will come into the court documents or into the testimony at all. But if she's going to try to blame Alex, then it would be wise of her to try to bring that in, but I don't know how she would do it legally.
You know, Rex, this of all the cases involving all that happened here, whether it's Chad Daybell's or Lori's, this is the most defensible case. You know, just from looking at it like a lawyer, like looking at, okay, well, someone else actually pulled the trigger, like Megan said. He has a bit of a past. He's a bit of a hothead. Like, it would be an easy place for the defense to go and a lawyer to kind of guide their defense. But because of the nature of the relationship, I'm wondering if you feel that Lori feels some sort of connection to Alex and not wanting to disparage his name, and he's not here to defend himself, that she would refrain from pointing the finger at him for that reason. Do you think that's even part of her equation?
I don't think Alex is in her mind at all. I think it's just Lori doing whatever Lori thinks will get her what she wants. She wasn't that close to Alex most of her life, growing up, young adult, adulthood. He did convert to her strange religion and was very loyal to her, okay? But, you know, even at that, you had the text between her and Chad. Well, have you checked in with Alex? It's not good for him to be alone. He's the only way they can get to us. And she wasn't nearly as loyal to Alex, I don't think. Again, I'm speculating. She wasn't nearly as loyal to him as he was to her. I think she'll do whatever it takes to get what she wants for herself. No loyalty to Alex, I don't believe.
We only have about 10 seconds here, Megan, but are you suspicious of Alex's death at all?
I am very suspicious of it. I think that the timing was very suspicious. I think that, of course, the autopsy revealed that he had a bilateral pulmonary embolism, meaning he had embolisms in both of his lungs. But you will never, ever be able to convince me that that was natural causes. He died the day after Tammy Daybell's body was exhumed. And just, I think, a couple of days or short time after, he received a blessing from Chad that told him that he would know when it was his time to cross over into the next world. And so whether he caused that himself or someone else did, I will never believe it was natural.
We're out of time. Megan Connor, Rex Connor, appreciate your unique insight. Thank you so much. Lori Daybell's trial has the added element of being extremely unpredictable because Lori has chosen to represent herself. This tells me she wants the spotlight, she wants the attention, and she wants to tell her story. The question is, will a jury believe it? I'm Vinnie Politan. We'll keep digging for answers as the investigation continues.